Hello everyone, and welcome to Microsoft Excel Tips and Tricks. I'm Mark Anton, a Program Manager for IT Showcase at Microsoft. Today, we're going to go through a number of tips for using Microsoft Excel. Some of these you may already know, but some may be new and can save you some valuable time. Let's take a look at the agenda. So today, we're going to cover a few viewing tips, ways to filter your data, ways to merge some cells together, calculating your data, and tips on how to troubleshoot errors. So first, let's jump right into how to view some of your data by using freeze panes. So right here, we have data that is all made up. This is a first name, last name, alias, where the individual goes to college, perhaps, a birthday, how much they paid for different items. This is like a fictitious 5K or 10K or whatever. So you'll notice if you try to scroll down, the top row disappears. And you notice when you scroll to the right, the columns will slowly disappear. And one way to actually make those stay put is to go to your View tab, go to Freeze Panes, and then tell Excel you want to freeze the top row. Now when I scroll down, everything will disappear except for the top row stays static. But let's say you want to make sure you keep the first and last name also static and have everything else disappear while you scroll. You go back to Freeze Panes and you have to unfreeze the panes first. Then you go to the active cell in the corner and you want anything to the left to stay frozen and anything to the top to stay frozen. So then you go back to Freeze Panes and you say Freeze Panes. Now if I scroll down, the top row stays, and if I scroll to the right, the names also stay. So that's a viewing tip that is very helpful when you're working with your data. So next I would like to show you very quickly how to use the data filter function. So you see on the first row we have first name, last name, alias, from, birthday, etc. So if I highlight the top row and go to Data, there's this filter option. I can select Filter, and now, we scroll back to the left, now I have the option to filter on all of these categories. For example, we can unselect everything and filter on shirt. And click OK. Now you see all the shirts that everyone has purchased. And then you can further filter by clicking on the vendor name and unselect one of the vendors, and now you see all the shirts just by that particular vendor. So that's one way to use the filtering function. Another very helpful way, let me clear these filters. I'm going to clear the filter right there. Another very helpful way to use the filter function is to before I do a sort, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to highlight the first column. I'm going to insert a new column here. And you'll notice that there is no filter button here. So what I'm going to need to do is highlight this first row, turn filtering off, and then turn filtering back on. And what that did was it allowed for this column to actually be used in the count. So I'm going to actually put 1 and 2 here on the first 2 rows. And I'm going to call this order. So now when I highlight these 2 cells and I copy down, all the way down to the bottom, row 237, Excel knew that I wanted to count them in a sequence of 1. So now I have an order of how all these entries were made. So what I can do now, let's say I look at the birthday column and I want to sort these from oldest to newest. You see here I have the birthday of someone who was born in 1935, and as the rows go down, the numbers go up. And also on column A, I have my original order. So if I realize this was a mistake, and I want to go back to my original order, I go smallest to largest, and now I'm back. So that's one basic way to use the filtering and the sorting through the data filter option. So now I want to show how to do an email merge. There may be a situation where you have 2 different cells and you want to merge the information in both of those cells. So first what I'm going to do, since I don't want to ruin my data, I'm going to right click on the participant list. I'm going to go to move or copy, and I'm going to go down to create a copy, and I'm going to move the copy of this tab to the end. So here's my participant list 2. It looks identical to this tab. But what I'm going to do, I don't need most of this information, so I'm going to go ahead and delete a few of these columns. Right click, delete. And what I have here is first I have the order, first name, last name, what their alias is, and then where they go to college. Now if I look through all the way down, I see that everyone here goes to Bellows College, so I really don't need this column as well. I know what the email address is for Bellows College, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an @bellowscollege.com in this particular cell. This is going to throw an error right away because it says the function isn't valid. What Excel thinks that this is I'm trying to do some kind of a function because I'm starting with an @ symbol. So I'm going to say OK. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to highlight this column. I'm going to go to Format Cells. And then I am going to tell Excel anything in this column, just treat it as text. Don't treat it as anything else. It's not going to be a function. So now I can freely write in anything I want, bellowscollege.com, and Excel accepted it. So I am going to copy that information all the way down to the end. So now I have a whole column with Bellows College. Now what I want to do is I just want to merge these two. I want to merge this cell with this cell, for example. So what I can do, there's a couple of ways to do that. First, I can go to Formulas, and I go to Text, and I want to go to Concatenate. This will bring up this little wizard, and it shows you how to bring those two cells together. So I'm going to click on, in text number 1, I'm clicking on this cell, D2, and then for text number 2, I want to add this information. So it gives you a preview of what the information is going to look like. So here, this is exactly what I want it to look like. If I wanted to concatenate or add another column or cell, I could do that, but I don't. So I'm going to say OK, and you'll see here we have the merged of these two cells. Now if I copy this all the way down to the bottom, you'll see I have all that information now in this one column. The problem with this is now if I wanted to copy this, if I pasted it over here, for example, you'll see the formula reads to concatenate J2 and K2. So it thinks it wants I want to merge these two, which I don't. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So the way around that is you will highlight your column, you copy your column, and then when you go to paste your column wherever you paste it, you right-click, and instead of pasting this, you want to paste the values. So pasting in this format gives you, now you'll see in the function bar, we have, or the formula bar, we have all of the information just in a text format. This is what we wanted. So another way, let me delete these two, or delete these few columns here. Now another way to do this, to add something into the end of this particular cell is to do an equal sign. You highlight the cell you want. You do an ampersand, and then open quotation, and then you write whatever you would like in there. bellowscollege.com. Oops, I forgot to close it with a quotation. And then that will add whatever you put inside those two quotations. So that's the formula for that. And then you would copy down. And again, if you wanted to copy this and paste it somewhere else, you would want to use the paste 1, 2, 3 for just the values. So that's how to do an email merge in Excel. Now, let's say we are going to copy down the entire list of participants. And let me remove this column to avoid confusion. Okay, so now that we have all of the email addresses that we want copied over, I have a couple of people who are listed twice, and I don't want to email everyone twice. So what I'm going to want to do is remove duplicates. So how to do that is you go to Data, Remove Duplicates. I'm going to let Excel say expand the current selection. I'm going to unselect everything except for the column D, which the email addresses are under, and then click OK. And it found 26 duplicate values and removed them automatically. So now my list has just unique email addresses listed, which is what I wanted. So now let's take a quick look at how to do quick calculations. Okay, so here we are back on our first tab, and I wanted to take a look at how much was spent or how much we had sold. So what I can do is highlight that entire column, and you'll see down here is a very quick calculation. So it gives me an average of $39.94. It gives me a count, and it also gives me the sum of everything in that particular column. One other thing we can do is if you right-click in this area, you have other options available to you. You can do minimum and maximum, and you can see down here it shows a minimum of $2 was spent and a maximum of $500 was spent. This is a very, very great way of just quickly calculating how much of whatever either numbers of items or dollar figures you have in a particular column. I'm going to turn minimum and maximum off because it's not very useful for me. But that's a very quick way of doing quick calculations. Now I'm going to quickly show you how to count days in Excel. So we have this column E, it's the birthday column. I am going to highlight column F and insert. Now let's say for some unknown reason I want to know how many days old this individual is. So we're going to use the dated if function. So what that is equals dated if, close parens, then I select the cell that I want to count from. I put a comma, then I put today, open and close parens, and then comma, and then D for day in quotations. Now, Excel gives me back a date, which is not what I wanted. I wanted to know days, so I highlight that column, go to Format Cells. I tell them I just want a general or just a number. I'm going to go general. Now, Excel tells me this person is 25,000 days old, 25,725, which could be useful in some circumstances, but not for mine. So I'm actually going to change the formula to tell me how many years old this individual is. So I'm just going to change the D to a Y. Now I know this individual is 70 years old. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this down all the way down to the bottom. And now I know the ages of everyone as they sit today. And something else that is kind of helpful is to add a little bit more. So I'm going to put an ampersand after this, open quote, a space, and I'm going to say years old, and then enter. So now it says 70 years old. So I added that bit of text to the end of everybody's birthday. And one thing that's very handy is I can still filter, and now I can sort A to Z if I want. Now I know the youngest person who ran this race was 17, and the oldest person is 82. Another really handy function in Excel is to use the count if. So I have a number of items that we had sold: first aid, goggles, short, shirt. I'm going to start typing those here: shirt, short, shoes, goggles, for example. Now I want to see how many of them are in this particular column. How many shirts did we sell? How many shorts did we sell? One way I could do this longhand is I could, for example, choose one of these items, then highlight this column, and then do the count here at the bottom, knowing that it's actually 36 because it's counting the word item as well, but that's a little tedious. So what I'm going to do instead is do a quick formula here at the bottom. I'm going to say equal count if column H2 to H237. As soon as I put 7, it's going to highlight that column. And then now the criteria for me is count if the criteria is this shirt, and then close parens, and then hit enter, and now I see I was correct. I have 36 instances where shirt comes up. Now if I simply copy down, it looks like these numbers are correct, but what I'm going to show you is if you double click on any of these functions, you'll see where Excel has decided you want the information. So right now it's showing that I wanted to go from H5 to H240, and I actually didn't. I wanted to go from H2 like this first one. So in this instance, what you need to do is you need to tell Excel, and I put my cursor right before the number 2, you tell Excel, you put a $ in front of the number where you want it to stay, where you want it to freeze. So now I have to recopy this information down. And now if I go to the last one and double click, you'll see it stayed at the number 2, and it stayed at the cell 237, which is right where I wanted it to do. So now I want to show a little bit about how to manipulate your data. Sometimes you get data in and you need to change the data somewhat. So let me show you how to do that. Let's say you have this data here, column J, and you want to separate all the company names from the URLs, from the http://www.northwindtraders.com whack. Some of these have /, some of them don't. Some of them have www, some don't. So you want to separate this information. In order to that, we want to use the text to columns function. So I highlight column J. I move up here to it's in the data tab, text to columns. Now, normally you're probably going to use the delimited functions for text to column. So for delimited, you will click on next. Now Excel is asking me which character do I want to use to separate this information. I don't want to use tab. I'm actually going to use the /. And you see right when I do that, Excel takes a look down here and replaces any / and puts the information to the next column. So let's see what happens. We say next, and then we say finish. Now you see the first column now is just HTTP, which I know I didn't want. So that's great. The second column is we replace the / with nothing, so that's its own column. So these two columns we could actually delete. Now let me expand the last two columns here that we look like we were using, and you'll see we still have wwws, we still have .com. So what we can do is go back here and do another text to column. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Excel to replace anything that's a period. And we'll go through and finish. And now you'll see the only thing that's in this column is the first consultants, and then .com is actually, or com is still in the column here, but this is a lot less effort to clean up this data than it would have been to retype the entire thing. So that's how to use text to columns. Another way to manipulate data is, I showed this at the very beginning. If you decide you want to build something down in a series, you can tell Excel 1, then 2, and you'll see it listed everything in the series. It would also do that if you said 3, 5, knowing that you want to grow in odd numbers. Or if I said 25, 50, it would know that I wanted to climb by 25 increments. And it's also very handy when you're saying Sunday, Monday, and also January, February. Or if you wanted to say January, April, if you wanted to go quarters. Let me copy these down. Another very handy function for Excel is when you copy that information and you realize you wanted that at the very top in a row and not in a column, you will right click and you can paste as transpose. You'll see here it put them all in a row. So next, let's take a look at how to navigate within Excel. There are some keystrokes that make things a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. So very much like Alt-Tab, right now if I can use Alt-Tab and choose which program that I want to work on. Usually when I'm in Excel, I'm working within multiple tabs or within another Excel spreadsheet, like I have 2 spreadsheets open here. So what you can do is you can do Control Tab, and what Control Tab does, as you may be seeing here, is it switches between Excel spreadsheets, ignoring, as if I did Alt Tab, ignoring anything else that's open, like this. So if I go back to Excel, Control Tab is a very quick way of just jumping between one Excel spreadsheet to the other. Another very popular function that I love using, keystroke function I love using, is the Control Page Up and Control Page Down. When I'm in a spreadsheet, you see here I have 3 other tabs at the bottom. I don't like to have to reach for my mouse and grab and point and click to one of these other tabs, so instead I just use my keystroke, which is Control Page Down. Oops. Control Page Down will go select tabs to the left, and then when I go from Control Page Up, it goes back to the left. So that's a great way to maneuver around Excel. Another way to maneuver around Excel very quickly is, as we know, I have 237 rows, and I have been, throughout this demonstration, scrolling all the way down to the bottom. What is a very quicker way is to hit Control and then arrow down. And what the arrow down does is, you'll see it went to the last active cell. And if I went Control Page Up, it goes to the very top cell. So the same with left and right. If I went Control and then arrow over, it goes to the last active cell. And it stopped on this cell because there is nothing in this column. So if I went ahead and deleted this column, for example, let's say I go Control arrow to the left, and now if I go Control arrow to the right, it goes to the last cell with information in it. So now let me show you very quickly how to copy and insert data into your Excel spreadsheet. So let's say I needed to insert a number of rows. Very simply highlight one column or one row there and then insert. Another way to do this is to highlight a number of rows and insert. However many I highlighted is however many that would be inserted. The same with columns. If I highlight a number of columns, right click and hit insert, there's 4 new columns. So let me delete these very quickly, and I will show you how to copy information. So I am going to delete this information here, and then if I wanted to copy this column, for example, I could simply do Control C and then Control V. Another very quick way to do this is to hold the Control button down and then hover next to the column, and you'll see the plus sign turn into a mouse arrow and a small plus sign. If I drag this over, it will copy that information and not move it. If I just not use the Control button and move it and drag it over, it'll just move it. but holding the control button down will copy the information. So now let's take a quick look at conditional formatting. So we have here times in this middle tab. This is what the individuals who ran this race, this was their time. And let's say we want to take a look at the fastest versus the slowest. So I highlight that column. I go to my home tab and I click on conditional formatting. I look down at color scales. I have a number of different views. So let's say I chose the first one. The first one shows the higher numbers as green and then the lower numbers as red. Let's say I wanted to actually see the opposite, so I go back to color scales and I choose the one right next to it, and now this is the view I wanted to see. I wanted to see the highest numbers in red and the lowest numbers in green. Let's say for some reason I wanted to change the color scheme. It's very easy. I go into highlight the column and go back into conditional formatting. I tell Excel I want to manage these rules. It knows which rule I'm looking at, C to C, column C. I choose edit rule, and now I can change the colors if I want. Let's say I wanted to see blue in the middle. I can change it from 3 scale to 2 scale. I can change the percentile. Click OK, and there my color scheme has changed completely. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show is troubleshooting errors. There's a number of errors you'll see, and there's a number of ways you can troubleshoot your errors. So we have our original spreadsheet. Let me add a new tab. And here we are, sheet 1. So let's say I'm going to add 1 plus 2. I go here, gives me the answer 3. Let's say on accident, I tell Excel that I want to add the answer into the answer itself. So that's column E and row 8. So I'm adding the answer in as part of the calculation, and I get an error. There are one or more circular references where a formula refers to its own cell, either directly or indirectly. And I know this is incorrect. I'm going to click OK anyhow. And I move and I do some work outside in other areas in Excel. And then I close, forgetting to fix that error, and I save. And then I go back to my spreadsheet later and open it up. Right away I get the error message. There are one or more circular references where a formula refers to its own cell directly or indirectly, but I don't know where. I know it's in here somewhere, but I don't know where right off. So there's a few different things you can do, but the best thing to do is go to the formulas, go to error checking, drop down, you go to the circular references, and it tells you exactly where that error is. And if I click on it, Excel brings me right to where this error is. And another thing I can do is I can click on Show Formulas, and it shows the actual formula for any one of my tabs that I want to look at. So now here I can use the logic and figure out exactly what it was. I can go in here and take the error out, and then go back from Show Formula, and now there's my real answer. We hope you were able to gain a few new tips on how best to use Microsoft Excel in this video. Check out our other videos at microsoft.com/itshowcase/productivity or microsoft.com/itshowcase/webinars. Thanks for watching.